Hi, I'm Paul Seal from coachair.co.uk. Today I'm doing a video about how to declutter your controllers. So if you followed my tutorial about how to build an Umbrico site, you'd have probably seen that we put all the logic inside the controller. So what we're going to do today is take the logic out of the controller and put it into separate helper methods. So I'm going to get on with that and you'll follow along with me and hopefully you'll have cleaner code. So if you did follow along, you'd be familiar with this website that I've been doing for my mother-in-law. Alright, still not finished, but she's not pressurising me for it. I took a free template off the internet and I put it into Umbrico, basically. And throughout the series I showed you different ways of doing different things within Umbrico. So let's have a look at the code and we'll have a look at one of the controllers. So this is the home controller. With Umbrico you inherit from Surface Controller, and that gives you other things that you don't normally get in normal MVC applications. So let's just have a look down here, and this is quite a cluttered controller at the moment, and when I was filming the video before, I did say to you that I wouldn't normally do this in a production environment. I would, you know, like in my day job, I would actually put this into a separate library and have some helper methods and things like that. So that's what I'm going to do on this episode. I'm just going to show you how we can take this and put it into a helper method. So what I'll do first of all, along the way you might find some things that you don't like, or people might jump on the bandwagon and be like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. If you do find anything like that, please, you know, put it in the comments. I'll be interested to know your thoughts. And if I do something that you don't like and you know there's a better way, please let me know. I'll be happy to learn. I'm always looking to learn new things. I'm not trying to claim to be an expert, I'm just showing you a way that I do something. Right, so what I'm going to do first of all is add a project into the solution. So right clicked and I want to do add new project, and I'm going to look for class library and .NET framework, and it's 4.5. I think I can do 4.5 too, so I'll just change that. I think that's what the version of the framework is that my web application is using as well, so I'll stick to being the same one. I'm going to call this Fiona Whitfield art.library. Sorry about that, it's a weird way of saying library. Or .lib, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't matter. So that's added that class library, so I'm going to delete class 1, I don't want that. Now I'm going to add some folders. So first folder I'm going to add is called helpers. And another folder I'm going to add is models. Moodles. Let's rename that, I've got that one wrong. Models. So I've got a helpers folder and a models folder. Now I'm going to add a new class in helpers, and this one is going to be called home helper.cs. Right, so this one is going to be used for this here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up some initial properties that I want in the constructor. So public class, so that's the class home helper. So then I'm going to do a constructor home helper, and in it I want to pass in the current page that we're using. So I need to add some references to some of the Umbrico things that we're going to use. So if I go to browse, click on browse, go Fiona Whitfield art, trunk, packages. Now I'm looking for the Umbrico libraries now, so Umbrico CMS Core 754, and I want to add, I'll probably want log4net, I want Umbrico Core and log4net probably. Add those, click on OK. So now in my constructor I can say that I want to use iPublish content, so I'm just going to use umbrico.core.models, and then in the constructor I can do iPublish content, and I'm going to call this current page. Actually this should be home page. This is, no, current page is fine. current page, and then I also want the Umbraco helper. So using umbraco.web, I'll do Umbraco helper. I'll just call that uhelper. So this will allow me to do things like umbraco.content or umbraco.media that you automatically get from being inside a Surface controller. You have access to do those things, but when you're in a separate library you don't. So a way that we can do that is to use an Umbraco helper. Now this is one of those where someone might point out that I'm doing it wrong. Please feel free to point it out and tell me a better way. And I'm not being funny with you, I actually mean it. If you've got a better way, please, because I was looking for one. Anyway, home helper. So I want some private variables, so I'm going to set up the current page as a private variable. Oh no, I don't need it to be get set, sorry, it's just a private variable. And a Umbraco helper. There we go. So now when these get passed in, I can do current page equals current page like that. And I can do uhelper equals uhelper. Okay, so what does that give us then? So let's say we've got the testimonials. No, we'll start with the top, featured. So I'm going to just copy this. So the idea here is, so this is the action result. So this is what needs to stay in the this needs to stay in the controller, but it's the whole getting the model and the model that gets passed in here with the partial view. It's this whole part that we want to put into its own method inside the helper. So before I do that, I'm going to refactor it within the controller so I can separate it out, test that it works. Then once I'm happy with that, I'll put it into the helper, and then we can start using the helper and see that that works as well. So do it in a two-stage process. So this is the model here. So what I'm going to do is just highlight all of this, and I'm just going to do Control RM, and that will refactor the method. I'm going to give it a new name. So get featured items model. Press enter. So now that's taken all of that code that was in here and put it into a separate one, into a separate method. So first stage, let's just build that and see if it still works. So that is these ones here, I believe, the featured items. Yeah. Excuse me. Just waiting, sorry. Don't know why it's so slow. So there we go. So there wasn't any errors, it seems to work. That'll do for me. So it's working still, it didn't break. It compiled alright, there was no errors. Lovely. Next thing, let's take this. We're going to cut that whole method out and we're going to put it into the home helper. And in here, I'm just going to paste it in. And instead of being private, I'm going to make it public. Now, it doesn't know about featured item. So I'm going to move the model featured item from within the web project. There. I'm going to take this and I want to put it into the library project. So easiest way for me to do this is just create it in the models, add class. So I've copied it and I'm just going to do featured item. Yeah, that's right. And then I can just paste that there, and then I just want to keep the references. So if I just delete that, now that keeps the references. And one thing that I didn't keep, these aren't even needed up there. That's great. So now we have that within the library project that I've created. So if we go back to the home helper and I just say using Fiona Whitfield art.library.models, that should light up now. This lights up, so it's allowed to use that, so that's good. Also, we've got a problem here, it's looking for current page. So what we should do is use the private variable, so the current page gets passed in, and then we can use it lower down here by using that current page private variable. So that one's done. Next thing is we need archetype. Now, one way we can do this is either just reference the archetype DLL that's in the bin, or we can, I think there's a NuGet package for archetype binaries, so let's just have a look, which I think is ideal for just libraries. Here we go, archetype binaries. So I believe we can just, on our web, not on our web, on our library project, we can do manage NuGet packages, or we can go down here. I like to use the package manager console, I just think it's easier. If we choose the project, Fiona Whitfield art.library, paste in what I got off the internet there for installing the NuGet package, hit enter, and that should install the binaries that we need. So that means that we can just then add a using statement at the top here to say using archetype.models, and then that will resolve those other errors. Any minute now. Attempting to gather dependencies. There we go. Installing, all the references being added. It's got quite a few. I didn't realise it was going to use so many. Well, hopefully it won't die. Yeah, it liked it. I'm happy with that. Now I can just do using archetype.models. Now, so the other way you can do it, if you didn't want to do all of that, you can just go references, add reference, browse, packages, maybe archetype, lib. It could have been in there, but that might have just been added from mine, but you get the idea. Or you could just go into the bin of the web project, but that's a bit dangerous because when you clean the solution it gets deleted. There are various ways to do it. Right, so we're still in the home helper. I've added that models reference now, so it likes it, so we're doing well. So then we've got another problem here, and that is that it can't do the umbraco dot. So if we look at this uhelper, that's why we added this uhelper. So we can say uhelper dot, and that way we can use this dot media. That will then get the media item. That resolved this error that we had on URL here. And same again for typed content, uhelper dot type content. Now we don't have any errors. So it's all looking good. I can do a build. Ooh, right, it doesn't exist in the current context. So that's still looking for this within the home controller. So it can't find this method. So obviously we've moved that. So what I've done is with this home helper that I created it as a class that needs instantiating as an object. So let's do that first. Home helper. Oh, I need to use the reference to the helpers folder. So using Fiona Whitfield art.library. Oops. It doesn't know about .library, so let's add that. So in the web project, we just need to right click, add a reference, and then we just need to choose from projects and tick the library. Now we can do a using statement here, Fiona Whitfield.art.library.helpers we want. That allows me then to do the home helper equals a new home helper, and I can say current page in here. Now this is another bit where someone might say don't do it like that, but please tell me a better way. I hope you do. Current, so Umbrico context, it's all about this context apparently. That's where there's a slight issue, and I have looked for a better way but I can't find one. So that creates the home helper, and now we can then just say home helper dot get featured items model. So list of featured item model equals home helper dot get featured items model. So what's it saying to us now? We do a build, let's see what it says. I don't think it likes it, and I'm not sure why. Soon find out. So I can't convert system.collections.generic list Fiona Whitfield art.library.models featured item to Fiona Whitfield art.models.featured item. Okay. So that's the problem, and it's because we've got the other one still existing in the web project. There's a bit of a ambiguity. Didn't think I was going to say the word ambiguity today, but I have done now. So I'm going to delete that from there. We don't need that. And the idea is that I don't really have many models in my web project. I have them in my separate library. So we can port them over to it. So we need to add a reference here for using Fiona Whitfield art.library.models. That one lights up. And it likes it again, it's friends again. And give it a whirl. Yep, the build succeeded, so let's see if it still works on the front end. In a minute now. And while we wait for that to happen, which I'm pretty sure it's going to work. One of the other things that, oh yeah, so partial view path. So I got some feedback that was a confusing name, because when you're calling it partial view path, and then blah blah blah. So recently I started calling this little method here get view path, and so then I can just, whoops, it's a bit clearer as to what it means. It's not that groundbreaking, but it just helps. So yeah, that's tidied that one up there. So we took all of that code out of that. So if you remember what it was like before, it had all those lines. We refactored it first of all into its own method. We then shipped it off over to the home helper, and we put it in here. And because of the way we set up this home helper, we can use the U helper and the current page, and we pass them in with the constructor. And that's what also makes it more testable as well. I don't like these sort of things here, these magic strings and numbers. So one thing that I would normally do on this as well is to say I'm going to pass in a string of home alias home doc type alias, but I'm going to default it to be what it is, so that'll be home. That way if we use this on something else, I can override this. Might be a bit naughty, I don't know, I'm not sure. And just do home doc type alias. So you get the idea. So now I can do that equals that, and then I can use that in there with the underscore. So now I'm not relying on text in my code as such. Obviously that's a default value, but I can override that. And then do the same for the others as well. Let's just quickly do that. Featured items alias, and this is because in Umbraco you might call it something slightly different, but you might want to reuse the code. I recently did a NuGet package which has got all this sort of stuff in it, loads of helpers and models for boilerplate code that you would use on loads of different sites. I can't share it because it's I wrote it at work, it's for work, but it's this sort of idea, and you just pass these sort of things in, and that way you can just reuse it on loads of different sites then. So where they vary with the different names of these variables, it doesn't really matter because you can override it. So it can still work. So it's just like future-proofing it, which I was quite pleased about. So yeah, just repeat it, rinse and repeat. So, as I say, yeah. And then we want to get the image alias. I'll just try and hurry these up. There we go, and I can use that one there. So you get the idea. Sometimes it is good to see it repeated a few times. I know when I'm watching tutorials, I like to see them do it, because then the next time when they do the next one, I can predict what they're going to do. And usually, if it's following the right pattern, then I'm right. I get some satisfaction out of predicting what it's going to be and being right about it, because it shows that I'm learning and understanding what I'm following. So hopefully you're getting that as well. That's the page alias, so I can replace that one with that now. And so we want one for name and one for category. So private string name alias. Oops. So that's a name. And then there's one more after that. Category. And then we've got to set it to be equals category. One thing to note here, I don't know if you know about this, but say if you have, I've got these variables in here, but these ones here don't have a default value, but the ones over here do have a default value. That's the equals and then that. If I was to then try and add a new one that doesn't want to have a default value at the end, it would complain about it, because you can't do that. You need to have, any of your default ones need to be at the end, and those that can't have a default need to be nearer the front before any of the default ones. So it's just something to make you aware of. And then we can just do category alias equals category alias. Give that a build. There we go. No errors. Oh, we've got an error here. Don't know why we've got an error. Let's see what the problem was. So this was me moving on without checking, wasn't it? The type or namespace featured item couldn't be found. So Have a think about it. Why do you think that is? I know why it is. I've just worked it out. And it's because of the model. So if we go to the view where we are using those featured items in home, and then in here we've got using Fiona Whitfield art.models, then it's featured item. But the problem is we deleted it from there and we put it into the .library.models. So now that I've changed the reference, it should be happy with that, and because it's in the view I don't need to recompile, so I can just save that and then refresh on the front end, and fingers crossed it should be okay. Fingers crossed. There we go. So these are the featured items and it all worked lovely. So let's go back to our helper. So it's looking fairly neat. The only time we're seeing any sort of magic strings or numbers is in the case of a default, but as I say, you can overwrite them. Let me show you how, if you wanted to, override them. So when we are using this home helper, we're setting it up, we can do a comma after those ones, and if you look here we've got all these optional parameters. So if I wanted to, I would say image alias, so image alias, and then I would do a colon, and then I would put the value of that after it. So I'll do image thingy. There you go. So that way I would pass that in. This will probably break it, so let's do that. Let's break it. Let's break it. So I've just done a build, Control-Shift-B, and there won't be any errors on the compiled code, and that is because it's fine. It's just it doesn't know that Umbraco won't find that parameter, won't find that variable when it tries to get it. But that's okay, because that's just only going to change when you're on a different project and you didn't quite name your parameters the same. So waiting for that. But this is quite useful to say something like a carousel helper. Yeah, look, we've got error. It's just not rendered it here. It's not got an image for them. So that proves that point. So if you had a carousel helper that you created that you wanted to use on multiple sites, it would be ideal for that sort of thing. You'd have an image alias, a title alias, and so on and so on. So I'll just change it back. I won't look to see the results because we know it worked before that. Right, so let's see if there's anything else we can tidy up within this controller. This render services, it's not really doing anything. I didn't set up a model for this, but if you think back, you'd be able to, if you followed along yourself, you'd probably be able to set something up like this. So the services, it was just a continuation of the same sort of things really. It was probably just similar to this. I'm not going to go into that. Render blog. So the latest blog post model. So really we could, let's do that. RM. Latest blog post model is that. So I'm going to say get latest blog post. Get latest blog post model. So remember I highlighted it, the control RM, that puts it into a separate method. I'll change this to public while I'm here. We'll just give it a build and then give it a test on the front end. So that latest blog post bit is what was down here. So that's going to pull those three up there. And with this one, it's using the home page rather than the current page. Although I suppose I can still do it from the current page and get the, yeah, so I'm going to do that. Right, so it still works there in place. So let's take this out of here. Put it into the home helper. There's another method. Right, so we're going to have a couple of errors. So first of all, the easy one is the current page. We can replace that with that. And then the other error is the latest blog post model. Oh, we can do the home alias, home.type alias. That's good. And actually, we seem to be trying to get the home page quite a lot. So we could technically put that into its own one. Might do that actually. No, it's not that important. Anyway, latest blog post model. Let's have a look for that in here. Latest blog post model. Copy that. Actually, I'll try and drag it over this time. No. Oh yeah. Go on then. So yeah, you can drag it into it, but look at that. That's annoying. I'm going to let go. Just create it. It's not worth it. So go to models, add class, latest blog post model. Give it a public. I don't need to do any of that actually. I just need to paste in the one that I copied and then just change the namespace. That's it. Get rid of these, they're not needed. So now it exists in the library area. So if we go to Home Helper, that's automatically resolved the issues because it already has a reference to the library, so it already knows about it. The other thing to do is we just need to go to where it's being used on the view. So we've got blog. What view does it call? Let's go back to the controller. So the home controller uses blog, get view path blog. Alright, so it uses this one. So I need to do a using. Alright, so I don't have a using on this, but I can do. I can just change this to be .library.models. There we go, and that will point to that one instead. And while we're at it, let's just delete the one that existed in the web project. Latest blog post model. That one's gone. So I think that should still work, but now this is going to complain because it can't get to it. So we just instantiate the home helper there, and then we do this home helper dot get latest blog post model. There we go. Now one thing that I have to, let's just test it out anyway. I think it should just work. You get the idea. I think one thing I've done before is just put that home helper as a private variable on this controller, and that way that can be passed into the constructor of the controller if you really want to, and that would help for dependency injection if you want to swap that out. So that'd be another good one. So instead of it being instantiated within the controller, if it gets passed into the controller. But this isn't about dependency injection. I have got one. I have done a video about dependency injection, so you can have a look at that. But this has still worked, so it's still able to render the blog posts. So that's good. That's tidied that one up as well. You get the idea. Let's just put this. I'm going to cut that out. I'm going to put this up here, and I'm going to say home helper underscore home helper, and then I'll just do the arrow syntax like that. And then if I use that here, I can just go replace that there and replace that there and delete that line. So now whenever they need to use the home helper, they'll go up to here, get the home helper, and it should just work. I don't need to see that every time. Hide that. So now we're just neatening up the controller. So all we've got left on this controller is testimonials. It's pretty much the same thing. Oh, one thing I didn't do on the home helper, I didn't add these. So we can add these aliases up here. that will need to nut up as well if we want to. If we thought it was getting a bit too busy with the constructors, we could split these out into separate helpers, like a blog helper, a featured items helper. You know, we can do those sort of things. So yeah, that's just a way. I wanted to guide you down a path of this is how you can do it. I said that that's what I do, but I never actually made a video to show you how to do it. So that is how to do it. Let's give it a refresh on the front. Is it? Yeah, it's still working. And that's using the home helper like that. So I think I'll probably end it there. You now know how to do those sorts of things, to slim down your controllers and put that into a separate helper. And like before, when I did it, I was doing it with a static class and static methods, but that's not very good for testing and things like that. So this way it is better. Yeah, if you've got any comments, please leave them in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please like the video. Share it with other people if you think they'll find it useful. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this or other videos where I'm just talking at the screen. And I look forward to hearing from you. So thanks for watching. Cheers.